right, guys, we are going to read Take Your Seats, Everyone. This is our last day of wonder. Take your seats, everyone. Jack and I walked right behind a couple of sixth graders into the building and then followed them to the auditorium. Mrs. G was at the entrance handing out the programs and telling kids where to go. Fifth graders down the aisle to the left, she said. Sixth graders to the right. Everyone come in, come in. Good morning. Go to your staging areas. Fifth graders to the left, sixth graders to the right. The auditorium was huge inside. Big sparkly chandeliers, red velvet walls, rows and rows and rows of cushioned seats leading up to the giant stage. We walked down the wide aisle and followed the signs to the fifth grade staging area, which was in a big room to the left of the stage. Inside were 4 rows of folding chairs facing the front of the room, which is where Mrs. Rubin was standing, waving us in as soon as we walked into the room. Okay, kids, take your seats, she was saying, pointing to the rows of chairs. Don't forget, you're sitting alphabetically. Come on, everybody, take your seats. Not too many kids had arrived yet, though, and the ones who weren't listening to her. Me and Jack were sword fighting with our rolled-up programs. Hey, guys! It was Summer walking over to us. She was wearing a light pink dress and I think a little makeup. Whoa, Summer, you look awesome, I told her, because she really did. Really? Thanks, you do too, Augie. Yeah, you look okay, Summer, said Jack, kind of matter-of-factly. And for the first time, I realized that Jack had a crush on her. This is so exciting, isn't it? Said Summer. Yeah, kind of, I answered, nodding. Oh, man, look at the program, said Jack, scratching his forehead. We're going to be here all freaking day. I looked at the program. Headmaster's opening remarks, Dr. Harold Jansen. Middle school director's address, Mr. Lawrence Tushman. Light and Day Middle School Choir. 5th grade student commencement address, Exima Chin. Panchbel Canon in D, Middle School Chamber Music Ensemble. 6th grade student commencement address, Mark Antok. Under Pressure Middle School Choir. Middle School Dean's Address, Mrs. Jennifer Rubin. Awards Presentation, C. Back. Roll call of names. Why do you think that? I asked. Because Mrs. Jensen's speech goes on forever, said Jack. He's even worse than Tushman. My mom said she actually dozed off when he spoke last year, Summer added. What's the award presentation? I asked. That's when they give medals to the big brainiacs, Jack answered, which would mean Charlotte and Exima will win everything in the 5th grade, just like Charlotte won everything in the 4th grade and in the 3rd grade. Not in the 2nd grade, I laughed. They didn't give those awards in the 2nd grade, he answered. Maybe you'll win this year, I joked. Not unless they give awards for the most C's, he laughed. Everybody take your seats, Mrs. Rubin started yelling louder now, like she was getting annoyed that nobody was listening to her. We have a lot to get through, so take your seats. Don't forget, you're sitting in alphabetical order. A through G in the 1st row, H through N in the 2nd row, O through Q in the 3rd row, R through Z in the last row. Let's go, people. We should go sit down, said Summer, walking towards the first section. You guys are definitely coming over to my house after this, right? I called out after her. Definitely, she said, taking her seat next to Exima Chin. When did summer get so hot? Jack muttered in my ear. Shut up, dude, I said, laughing, as we headed toward the 3rd row. Seriously, when did that happen? He whispered, taking the seat next to mine. Mr. Will, Mrs. Rubin shouted. Last time I checked, W came between R and Z. Yes? Jack looked at her blankly. Dude, you're in the wrong row, I said. I am? And the face he made as he got up to leave, which was a mixture of looking completely confused and looking like he just played a joke on someone, totally cracked me up. Next chapter is titled A Simple Thing. About an hour later, we all seated in the giant auditorium, waiting for Mr. Tushman to give his middle school address. The auditorium was even bigger than I imagined it would be, bigger even than the one at Via's school. I looked around, and there must have been 1 million people in the audience. Okay, maybe not 1 million, but definitely a lot. Thank you, Headmaster Jensen, for those very kind words of introduction, said Mr. Tushman, standing behind the podium on the stage as he talked into the microphone. Welcome, my fellow teachers and my members of the faculty. Welcome, parents and grandparents, friends and honored guests, and most especially, welcome to the 5th and 6th grade students. Welcome to the Beecher Prep Middle School graduation ceremonies. Everyone applauded. Every year, continued Mr. Tushman, reading from his notes, with his reading glasses way down on the tip of his nose, I am charged with writing 2 commencement addresses, one for the 5th grade and one for the 6th grade graduation ceremony, and one for the 7th and 8th grade ceremony that will take place tomorrow. And every year I say to myself, let me cut down on my work and write just one address that I can address for both situations. Seems like it shouldn't be a hard thing to do, right? And yet each year I still end up with 2 different speeches no matter what my intentions, and I finally figured out why this year. It's not, as you might assume, simply because tomorrow I will be talking to an older crowd with middle school experience that is largely behind them, whereas your middle school experience is largely in front of you. No, I think it has to do with more of the particular age that you are at right now. This particular moment in your lives that even after 20 years of my being around students this age, still moves me because you're at the cusp, kids. You're at the edge between childhood and everything that comes after. You're in the transition. We all gathered here together, Mr. Tushman continued, taking off his glasses and using them to point at all the audience, all your families and friends and teachers, to celebrate not only your achievements of the past year, Beecher Prep middle schoolers, but your endless possibilities. When you reflect on the past year, I want you all to look at where you are now and where you've been. You've all gotten a little taller, a little stronger, a little smarter, I hope. Here, some people in the audience chuckled. But the best way to measure how much you've grown isn't by inches or the number of laps you could run around the track or even your grade point average, though those are important. To be sure, it's what you've done with your time, how you've chosen to spend your days, and whom you've touched this year. That, to me, is the greatest measure of success. There's a wonderful line in the J.M. Barrie, and no, it's not Peter Pan, and I'm not going to ask you to clap if you believe in fairies. Everyone laughed again. But in another book by J.M. Barrie called The White Little Bird, he writes, he started flipping through a small book on the podium until he found the page he was looking for, and then he put on his reading glasses. Shall we make a new rule of life? Always try to be a little kinder than necessary. Here, Mr. Tushman looked up in the audience. Kinder than necessary, he repeated. What a marvelous line, isn't it? Kinder than necessary. Because it's not even enough to be kind. One should be kinder than needed. Why I love that line, that concept, is that it reminds me that we carry with us as human beings not just the capacity to be kind, but the very choice of kindness. And what does that mean? How is it measured? You can't get a yardstick. It's like I was saying just before. It's not like measuring how much you've grown in a year. It's not exactly quantifiable, is it? How do we know we've been kind? What is being kind anyway? We put on the reading glasses again and started flipping through another small book. There's another passage in a different book I'd like to share with you, he said, if you'll bear with me while I find it. Here we go. It's Under the Eye of the Clock by Christopher Nolan. The main character is a young man who is facing some extraordinary challenges. There's this one point when someone helps him, a kid in the class. On the surface, it seems like a small gesture, but to this kind man, whose name is Joseph, it's, well, if you permit me, he cleared his throat and read from the book. It was at moments such as these that Joseph recognizes the face of God in human form. It glimmered in their kindness of him. It glowed in their keenness. It hinted in their caring. Indeed, it caressed in their gaze. He paused and took off his reading glasses. It glimmered in their kindness to him. He repeated, smiling. Such a simple thing, kindness. Such a simple thing. A nice word of encouragement given when needed, an act of friendship, a passing smile. He closed the book and put it down and leaned forward on the podium. Children, what I want to impart to you today is an understanding of the value of the simple thing called kindness. And that's all I want to leave you with today. I know I'm kind of infamous for my verbosity. Here, everybody laughed. I guess he knew he was known for his long speeches. But what I want you, my students, to take away from your middle school experience, he continued, is the sure knowledge that in the future, you make for yourself, anything is possible. If every single person in this room made it a rule that whenever you can, you will try to act a little kinder than necessary, the world really would be a better place. And if you do this, if you act just a little kinder than necessary, someone else, somewhere, someday may recognize it in you. In every single one of you, the face of God, he paused and shrugged, or whatever politically correct spiritual representation of the universal goddess you happen to believe in, he quickly added, smiling, which got a lot of laughs and loads of applause, especially from the back of the auditorium where the parents were sitting. Next chapter is awards. Awards. I liked Mr. Tishman's speech, but I have to admit, I kind of zoned out a little during some of the other speeches. I tuned in again, and Mrs. Robinson started reading off the names of the kids who made high honor roll, because we were supposed to stand up when our names were called. So I waited and listened for my name, and she went down the list alphabetically. Reed Kingsley, Maya Marquez, August Pullman. I stood up. Then when she finished reading off the names, she asked us all to face the audience and take a bow, and everyone applauded. I had no idea where in the huge crowd my parents might be sitting. All I could see were the flashes of light from people taking photos and parents waving at their kids. I pictured Mom waving at me from somewhere, even though I couldn't see her. Then Mr. Tishman came back to the auditorium, back to the podium to present the medals for academic excellence. And Jack was right. Eczema Chin won the gold medal for overall academic excellence in the 5th grade. Charlotte won silver. Charlotte also won a gold medal for music. Amos won the medal for the overall excellence in sports, which I was really happy about because ever since the nature retreat, I considered Amos to be like one of my best friends in school. But I was really, really thrilled when Mr. Tishman called out Summer's name for the gold medal in creative writing. I saw Summer put her hand over her mouth when her name was called, and when she walked up onto the stage, I yelled, "Woohoo, Summer!" as loudly as I could, though I don't think she heard me. After the last name was called, all the kids who'd just won awards stood next to each other on stage, and Mr. Tishman said to the audience, "Ladies and gentlemen, I am very honored to present to you this year's Beecher Prep School Scholastic Achievers. Congratulations to all of you." I applauded as the kids on stage bowed. I was so happy for Summer. "The final award this morning," said Mr. Tishman after the kids on stage had returned to their seats, "is the Henry Ward Beecher Medal to honor students who have been notable for exemplary in certain areas throughout the year. Typically, this medal has been one of our ways of acknowledging volunteerism or service to the school." I immediately figured Charlotte would get this medal because she organized the coat drive this year, so I kind of zoned out for a bit. I looked at my watch, 10:56. I was getting hungry for lunch already. Henry Ward Beecher was, of course, the 19th century abolitionist and fiery sermoneers for human rights. After whom this school was named, Mr. Tishman was saying when I started paying attention again. While reading up on his life in preparation for this award, I came upon a passage that he wrote that seemed particularly constant with the themes I touched on earlier. Themes I've been sorry, I got lost, guys. Not just the names of kindness, but the names of one's kindness, the power of one's friendships, the test of one's characters, the strength of one's courage. And here the weirdest thing happened. Mr. Tishman's cracked a bit, like he got all choked up. He actually cleared his throat and took a big sip of water. I started paying attention for real now to see what he was saying. The strength of one's courage, he repeated quickly, nodding and smiling. He held up his right hand like he was counting off. Courage, kindness, friendship, character. These are all the qualities that define us as human beings and propel us on occasions to greatness. And this is what Henry Ward Beecher Medal is about, recognizing greatness. But how do we do that? How do we measure something like greatness? Again, there's no yardstick for that kind of thing. How do we define it? Well, Beecher actually has an answer for it. And he put his reading glasses on again, leafed through a book, and started reading. "Greatness," wrote Beecher, "lies not in being strong, but in the right of using strength. He is the greatest whose strength carries up the hearts. And again, out of the blue, he got all choked up. He put his 2 index fingers over his mouth for a second before continuing. He is the greatest, he finally continued, whose strength carries up the most hearts by the attraction of his own. Without further ado, this year I am very proud to award the Henry Ward Beecher Medal to the student whose quiet strength has carried up the most hearts. So August Pullman, please come up here to receive this award. Got a little teary. All right, the next chapter is titled Floating. Floating. People started applauding before Mr. Tushman's words actually registered in my brain. I heard Maya, who was next to me, give a little happy scream when she heard my name, and Miles, who was on the other side of me, patted my back. "Stand up! Get up!" said kids all around me, and I felt lots of hands pushing me upward out of my seat, guiding me to the edge of the row, patting my back, high-fiving me. "Way to go, Augie! Nice going, Augie!" I even started hearing my name being chanted, "Augie! Augie! Augie!" I looked back and saw Jack had leading the chant, fist in the air, smiling and signaling for me to keep going. And Amos shouting through his hands, "Woohoo, little dude!" Then I saw Summer smiling as I walked past her row, and when she saw me look at her, she gave me a secret little thumbs up and mouthed the silent "cool beans" to me. I laughed and shook my head like I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. I think I was smiling. Maybe I was beaming. I don't know. As I walked up to the aisle towards the stage, all I saw was a blur of happy, bright faces looking at me and hands clapping for me. And I heard people yelling things out. "You deserve it, Augie. Good for you, Augie." I saw my teachers in the aisles seats, Mr. Brown and Miss Pisoda and Mrs. Roach, and Mrs. Antibobby and Nurse Molly and all the others, and they were cheering for me, woohoo, and whistling. It felt like I was floating. It was so weird, like the sun was shining full force on my face and the wind was blowing. As I got closer to the stage, I saw Mrs. Rubin waving at me in the front row, and then next to her was Mrs. G, who was crying hysterically, a happy crying, smiling and clapping the whole time. And as I walked up the steps to the stage, the most amazing thing happened. Everyone started standing up. Not just the front rows, but the whole audience suddenly got up on their feet, whooping, hollering, clapping like crazy. It was a standing ovation for me. I walked across the stage to Mr. Tushman, who shook my hand with both hands and whispered in my ear, "Well done, Augie." Then he placed the gold medal over my head, just like they do in the Olympics, and had me turn to face the audience. It felt like I was watching myself in a movie, almost like I was someone else. It was like the last scene in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, when Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Chewbacca had been applauding for destroying Darth Vader. I could almost hear the Star Wars theme music in my head as I stood on the stage. I wasn't even sure why I was getting this medal, really. No, that's not true. I knew why. It's like people you see sometimes and you can't imagine what it would be like to be that person. Whether it's somebody in a wheelchair or somebody who can't talk. Only I know that I'm the person to other people. Maybe to every single person in that whole auditorium. To me, though, it's just me, an ordinary kid. But hey, if they want to give me a medal for being me, that's okay. I'll take it. I didn't destroy a Death Star or anything like that. But I did just get through the 5th grade, and that's not easy, even if you're not me. All right, last 2 chapters. Pictures. Afterwards, there was a reception for the 5th and 6th graders under a huge white tent in the back of the school. All the kids found their parents, and I didn't mind at all when Mom and Dad hugged me like crazy, or when Via wrapped her arms around me and swung left and right about 20 minutes. Then Papa and Tata hugged me, and Aunt Kate and Uncle Poe and Uncle Ben, and everyone kind of teary-eyed and wet-cheeked. But Miranda was the funniest. She was crying more than anyone and squeezed me so tight that Via had to practically pry her off me, which made them both laugh. Everyone started taking pictures of me, pulling out their flip phones, and then Dad got me, Summer and Jack, together for a group shot. We put our arms around each other's shoulders, and for the first time I can remember, I wasn't even thinking about my face. I was just smiling, a big, fat, happy smile for the different cameras clicking away at me. Flash, flash, click, click. Smiling away at Jack's parents and Summer's mom started clicking. Then Reed and Maya came over. Flash, flash, click, click. And then Charlotte came over and asked if she could take a picture with us. And we were like, sure, of course. And then Charlotte's parents were snapping away at our little group along with everyone else's parents. And then the next thing I knew, the two Maxes came over, and Henry and Miles and Savannah. Then Amos came over, and Exima. And we were all in the big, bright hurdle as parents clicked away like we were in the red carpet somewhere. Luca, Isaiah, Nino, Pablo, Tristan, Ellie. I lost track of who else came over. Everybody, practically. All I knew for sure is that we were all laughing and squeezing and as tight against each other as no one seemed to care if my face was next to theirs or not. In fact, I don't mean to brag here, but it kind of felt like everyone wanted to get close to me. And our very last chapter of Wonder is titled The Walk Home. The Walk Home. We walked to our house for cake and ice cream after the reception. Jack and his parents and his little brother Jamie, Summer and his mother, Uncle Poe and her mother, Uncle Poe and Aunt Kate, Uncle Ben, Tata, Papa, Justin, and Via, and Miranda, and Mom and Dad. It was one of those great June days when the sky is completely blue and the sun is shining, but it isn't so hot that you wish you were on a beach instead. It was the perfect day. Everyone was happy. It felt like I was floating, the Star Wars hero music in my head. I walked with Summer and Jack, and we couldn't stop cracking up. Everything made us laugh. We were in this giggly kind of mood where all someone had to do is look at you, and you started laughing. I heard Dad's voice up in my head and looked up. He was telling everyone a funny story as they walked down Amherst Avenue. The grown-ups were laughing too. It was like Mom always said, Dad could be a comedian. I noticed Mom wasn't walking with the group of grown-ups, so I looked behind me. She was hanging back a bit, smiling to herself, like she was thinking of something sweet. She seemed happy. I took a few steps back and surprised her by hugging her as she walked. She put her arm around me and gave me a squeeze. Thank you for making me go to school, I said quietly. She hugged me close and leaned down and kissed the top of my head. Thank you, Augie, she answered softly. For what? For everything you've given us, she said. For coming into our lives, for being you. She bent down and whispered into my ear, You really are a wonder, Augie. You are a wonder. Guys, that is the very last chapter of Wonder. Woohoo! We finished. Make sure you complete your exit ticket.